listen. Tiny hands need ours to guide them. In this world of shadows, we must protect them. Every child deserves a brighter day. We are the watchers, we are the guardians, standing strong between them and harm. Every child's safety is our mission. We will keep them safe within our arms. We protect our children. They're the light of our future. Stand as their defenders through the darkest night. Every heart, every dream they cherish, worth more than silver, worth more than gold. We protect our children and make their world secure. Give them hope and healing and love that will last. When innocence is stolen, hearts break. Survivors carry invisible scars. But with our love and care, the strength is shown. Help them find the light of who they'll become. Communities united, families aware, teachers, neighbors, friends who genuinely care. Breaking walls of silence, speaking truth, giving back
Live on the air, Trial Junkies United presents Justice After Dark with your host, The.
Thank you, Doc. Hey, everybody. So glad to see you. We got Farquhar and Dr. Rachel and Pammy's here. And of course, our lovely Irish Luna. Thank you guys for coming, and more will join us, and we'll have a great evening. First order of business, Pammy, thank you for those coffees on Sunday. We really appreciated them. And let's go ahead and get started. Greetings to all of our truth seekers, our trial junkies, and our justice warriors. I'm Z, your storyteller in the wilderness of injustice. And my ride or die Doc is riding shotgun as we navigate the darkness where the predators hunt and the system fails. Are you ready to ride tonight, Doc?
I'm already riding.
Good thing. We need, and see, we can hear each other tonight.
Yeah.
And this is really a story that society would rather have us leave buried, but we refuse to let silence be betrayal. So buckle up. You know, every Thursday we honor our Indigenous brothers and sisters. And this is one that, man, it's going to hit you guys. Tonight, we're telling about a pediatrician named Dr. Stanley Patrick Weber. And I need to warn you, your righteous indignation's going to go through the roof on this one and make you really angry.
Can I name him? Please?
You can name him.
Please. Scumbucket.
Scumbucket. Okay, we'll call him Scumbucket. The honor is yours, my dear.
Thank you.
Hey, Fala. Glad you're here, sweetie. Well, normally you're not late to ours, so I won't let them talk about you, sweet little Fala. But this story, this isn't just about one predator. It's about an entire system that knew what he was doing, and they chose to look the other way for 30 years. This is about how Native children's safety was sacrificed because stopping him would have been, and I quote from the government's own report that was done after, it would have been awkward, arduous, inconvenient, messy, and embarrassing. Yeah, let that sink in.
Isn't that awful?
Native children were violated, traumatized, and betrayed because the people in charge didn't want to deal with the inconvenience. And before we dive into Weber's or Scumbucket's story, I want you to understand something about predators. Unfortunately, people inclined to commit this kind of crime, they put themselves in a position where it's easiest to carry it out. We learned that from Dr. McLeod when we talked to him. So you'll see predators become camp counselors, teachers, pediatricians, charity workers, and even members of the clergy. And it happens because they want access to our young children. It's horrible. And the Scumbucket didn't stumble into pediatrics by accident. He didn't end up working on reservations by chance. He positioned himself exactly where he wanted to be with vulnerable Native children who were already marginalized by a system that had failed them for generations. You got a lot of information to go with, Dr. Rachel. This is a heavy-duty topic. It really is. And so let's start with the beginning. And this is in 1986. The Scumbucket was commissioned as a member of the U.S. Public Health Service on July 9th, 1986. He was assigned to an Indian Health Service facility in Ada, Oklahoma, where he worked as a pediatrician and later became the chief of pediatrics. But here's where it starts. Before Weber was hired, before he got hired, a professional reference during his hiring process warned IHS, and that's Indian Health Service, that he had shown inappropriate interest in young children. I mean, come on, people. He's a pediatrician. And this is what they're saying, that he had inappropriate interest.
That was on the interview.
Yeah. That was from a recommendation.
Goodness.
Yeah. So did IHS document this concern? No. Did they investigate it? No. Did they protect the Native children? Absolutely not. Okay. Doc screenshot Dr. Rachel's comment, Dr. Earl Bradley. Gonna have to look him up. Instead, they hired him anyway, and Weber stayed in Ada until 1989. There's evidence that he left Ada under suspicion of being a child creeper. However, because various government officials and agencies have refused to cooperate with investigators, we don't know the full extent of what was known about his misconduct there. So think about that. We don't have the answers. The very people who are supposed to protect these communities are concealing the truth. Oh, welcome, Al. Glad you came tonight. So what happens next? Well, when he leaves, what do? He goes in July of 1989. The government just transfers him to Weber to participate in an adolescent medicine fellowship at the University of New Mexico in Albuquerque. Yeah. Let's push him on along here. His behavior worsens, or maybe it just became more visible. Weber volunteered at 2 teen centers for Native American youth. He spent evenings and weekends with the kids. The boys visited his home regularly. He gave them gifts. They were riding around in his vehicle, even driving his truck. One of his colleagues said she was uncomfortable with Weber's behavior and believed it was unprofessional. She had a constant feeling that Weber spent too much time with adolescent Native American boys, both individually and in groups. And get this, Weber took a 16-year-old Native boy on a trip to Europe alone.
Oh.
A concerned colleague reported this up the chain of command. Was Scumbucket stopped from taking the trip? Nah. Were there any consequences? No. When it came time for Weber to leave New Mexico, these concerns were reported to IHS. Despite these red flags, the boundary violations, the inappropriate relationships, alarm bells ringing from all of his colleagues, IHS transferred Weber, or the Scumbucket, to another pediatric position.
Did you ever find out whether or not did the kids' parents say anything before they took off to Europe?
At this point on this trip, no, we don't have that information because it was so long ago. I'll tell you another thing. A lot of these kids were in positions where perhaps their parents did not have custody of them. They could have been in custody of the state. Some parents thought the guy was being nice to their kid. They didn't have the warning bells go off.
Mm-hmm.
You got to remember, this was back in the 80s. Sadly, we weren't as on top of things as we are today. Hey, Ken, Frank Gibbo, glad you joined us. So he goes to another position. And where did they send him? To the Blackfeet Reservation in Browning, Montana, to work with more Native children. And he worked there from 1992 to 1995. Now, this is where he meets Richard Doe, William Doe, and James Doe. These brave men who would eventually come forward decades later to seek justice. When they first met Weber, they were just vulnerable Blackfeet Native boys aged 9 to 13. They had no reason to believe that the scumbucket was dangerous. 9 to 13. So that's his modus operandum there. That's his target. Hey, freedom fighter Gigi. PJ's here. They had no reason thinking he was dangerous, but IHS, they knew, it wasn't a surprise. So the scumbucket's colleagues and supervisors at the Blackfeet area, IHS quickly became concerned about his behavior. A colleague with professional experience treating individuals involved in offensive behavior immediately saw some patterns in Weber's behavior. He noticed that the scumbucket was targeting boys identified as youths that were at risk for neglect and SA. Staff knew Weber maintained a list of at-risk prepubescent and adolescent males with whom he spent time. They knew he brought a couch into his office. And he was often in there alone with young boys, often conducting patient visits after clinic hours when most staff had gone home. The scumbucket controlled his patient schedule so he could see mostly male patients. He would exclude the nurse responsible for scheduling to maintain his control. And here's something that really should have had the bells ringing, is he was observed giving drugs, opioids, and even STD medications because he was testing them for STDs. These are 9 to 13-year-old young boys, and he was giving them other drugs. Patients without a prescription. So these must have been drugs he was just handing out. Outside the clinic, he took the boys to restaurants without their parents. He dressed like a middle schooler, wearing his hat sideways and baggy pants, trying to fit in with these kids. He brought the boys to his IHS-owned housing because they provided housing for him on the reservation. And it was stocked with treats, toys, games, and other items that appealed to young boys. Now, Tim Davies, I don't know, I lost track of where I was in my pictures. Sorry, gang. Oh, here he is. This is Tim Davies. He was the chairman of the tribe at the time. And in 1992, he also worked in the hospital's facilities department. And part of his job was he would go and inspect government-owned houses. This would include the scumbucket's house. And during the annual walkthrough, when they do this with each house, they'll do inspections, the roof, the floors, the walls, the windows, the doors, and go through the basement to check for any leaks. He said, when I went downstairs, I was kind of floored by what I saw. To me, it was a signal that something wasn't right, because this is a guy that lived by himself. The gentleman had a lot of food items, candy, pop, cookies, and toys, games, and videos that boys would play with. I mean, it wasn't just a small amount. It was stacks of stuff. And I mean, they were stacked. He says, I'm a dad. I got boys. I got 8 boys. And I mean, I buy my kids stuff, but it's not stacked up in the basement like that was. And that to me signaled something's wrong with this guy. And so Davis did go and shared his concern with Mary Ellen Laframboise. And Mary Ellen, I'm sorry if I got your name wrong, dear. Who at the time, she was in charge there at the clinic. And she didn't see it as a cause for alarm because she thought, this is our maintenance person telling me that there's a lot of traffic of young people in and out of Dr. Scumbucket's house. And I think somebody had asked him about it, why there were so many young people. And he said, we just like to get together, and have pizza and pop and, do things for the children. He seemed to be genuinely interested in our young people. And he even came up with ideas about having a teen clinic area, having evening clinics, being more user-friendly to the community. So she said he he was polite. He assured me he would not harm a child and was respectful. And then I just didn't see him after that.
Is
So
this
really,
picture before or after she found out about him?
that picture is actually someone else. I
Oh,
don't know where her
okay.
picture is. We'll get to them.
All right.
Hey, therapist, But so word spread that the boys were spending nights at Weber's home. And the Blackfeet area hospital CEO was told by facility directors and staff, these boys are spending nights and he's hosting drinking parties. He took the kids to Great Falls shopping. He took them to basketball tournaments when the boys would qualify. And it was getting the community used to seeing him around children. So the implication of parental permission. This is a grooming behavior. So you take the kids who are at high risk, who are from difficult families, circumstances, and who are poor. You offer them new clothes, you offer them food, you offer them, a place where they can hang out, where the lights are on all the time. A child's going to gravitate toward that if they're having a tough time at home. Now, there was an incident reported to me where a family member to a kid went over there and wanted to fight him and ended up smashing him in the face, breaking his glasses, kind of gave him a black eye. And I thought, he's just going to be a problem. And so the other staff were like, there's something going on. So to sweep it under the rug or to pass it on to another place, the officials in Montana identified his conduct as grooming, indicated the likelihood that he was abusing his patients, reported the concerns to the IHS service unit director and to the regional director of behavioral health. What happened? Did they contact law enforcement? Nada.
No.
Did they remove him from the patient care? Nope. Did they protect these little children? No. Instead, he was ignored, and the known danger that he was posing and punished the people who tried to protect the children. And that's what they did. The hospital CEO accused one whistleblower doctor. This was the woman. That's Mary Ellen.
Okay.
The hospital CEO accused one of the whistleblowers, a doctor, of being homophobic. That was his answer to him implying something was going on with the boys.
Mm-hmm.
And so they removed him from the team and relocated him and provided a bogus reason to even evict him from government housing. And the message was clear. If you speak up, we're going to retaliate. And so from 1995 to 2016, what did they do? When the risk became too great, the scumbucket might get exposed or arrested in Montana. IHS didn't stop him, report him, or protect future victims. They passed the trash. And that's what it's called, passing the trash. When you know someone's dangerous, and instead of dealing with them, you move them somewhere else so they become someone else's problem. The clinical director of IHS for the Blackfeet area admitted that his IHS supervisors told him, I'm concerned you have a child creeper on your staff. You need to get rid of him. Did they investigate him? No. Did they report to law enforcement? They just followed the typical IHS response. Sweep it under the rug, pass it along to another place. And in 1995, IHS transferred Scumbucket to the Pine Ridge Reservation in South Dakota. And the most damning part, there was no documentation of his prior abuse that went with him. Nothing. He had no restrictions on his contact with young boys at Pine Ridge. So he kept abusing children because nobody had anything on there. Now, Dr. Butterbrot, I think is how you pronounce his name. I'm not sure, but I like this guy. You will too. He became really fixated on exposing the scumbucket. He says, I think a lot of people thought I was overreacting, and people would say to me, you don't have any real evidence. And that was always the IHS's line. We've looked at the data bank. There's no complaints on him. He's clean. And I learned that there was a psychologist who had worked with him at Browning and was aware of his activities in Browning, Montana prior to 1995 when he came here. And that was the couple that was in the pictures, a couple of people before the psychologist and his wife, who was also in mental health.
Okay.
And he said, I'd hear him rifling through my charts, cherry picking the cute teenage boys. So at that point, I started having some suspicions. He didn't want to see babies, toddlers, girls, or teenage girls. So just professionally, I'm butting heads with him. And I couldn't get anybody on the medical staff to listen to me. Now, at one point, Dr. Scumbucket did get suspended by the IHS in 2009 for alleged misconduct. And they sent an official to investigate finally. You think, yay, Ron Keats, okay? He was one of the Scumbucket's superiors at the time. But he would soon leave the IHS under a cloud himself and later be convicted of possessing child adult photos, if you know where we're going. So effectively, they sent a guy who would go on to be arrested a year later for trafficking in child adult photos to investigate the suspicions that their pediatrician could be a child creeper. Keats did not respond to requests when they asked him for an interview.
Yeah. Well.
Yeah.
How about that?
So you just sent one to catch one. That wasn't going to happen. So the Scumbucket was ultimately cleared and went back to work. Now, during the summer of 2010, there actually was a confrontation between this doctor that we see here, Dr. Butterbrodt, regarding the patient care. Because then Dr. Scumbucket claimed that he felt threatened. So they brought Dr. Butterbrodt within an hour. He said, I found myself in the acting clinical director's office at Pine Ridge. In the heat of the moment, I completely made an inappropriate statement. I said, if I wanted to intimidate him, I would have cut his nuts off with a rusty knife.
Woo!
I like this guy.
Yeah.
He said that comment was immediately reported to Washington, D.C. I was labeled a violent, uncontrollable person, and within weeks, I was being sent to Belcourt, North Dakota, forced to leave behind my life, my career, and my family. Yeah, wow. They got him out of town. So the Indian Health Service reassigned him to one of its most isolated facilities, 575 miles away on the Canadian border. He said, the nursing staff approached me and said, now you understand why we stay silent, Dr. B. Look at what they've done to you. I was given direct orders to leave. So a child creeper and the administration who protected him succeeded in driving me away. But you know what? He put his career on the line for those children. He was a hero in my book. So they ostracized any whistleblowers. They transferred, like they did with him, to remote facilities, punishment for trying to protect the children. Despite multiple reports to the high-ranking officials, including the current CEO of the hospital in North Dakota, no one reported the Scumbucket to law enforcement. Instead, they promoted him, Doc. They promoted him.
Where have we heard that before?
Oh.
Goodness.
Scumbucket was named the medical director of the IHS hospital in Pine Ridge. The predator they knew was abusing children was promoted and given a leadership position. One of the so-called Scumbucket boys was named Paul. There had been a young man named Joe Fourhorns in Montana that's going to come back to play. And Joe is now in prison, serving time for assault. Paul said that in exchange for sexual favors, Weber would give him money or prescription drugs. Now, you got to remember, these are boys. They've been abused by him. So it becomes something that becomes normal to them somewhat. And like the other boys, he kept his encounters a secret year after year because there's shame. As boys are the least likely to come out with these abuse. It's hard enough for girls. But one night he says he pushed back. He said the tribal police officer, Dan Hutsfit, was called to the scene. A call came in about an assault. We chased the suspect down and we found Paul not far from IHS housing. He says we took him into custody and sent him to juvenile detention. And as the officer took Paul to juvenile detention, he asked him, "What's going on?" The authorities now had a firsthand allegation of ongoing SA by Scumbucket. But on the reservation, the tribal authorities don't have jurisdiction over non-Indians or non-natives. Think about that. They have a non-native person on their reservation abusing their children, and they don't have the jurisdiction to do anything.
So they couldn't have done anything if they wanted to.
No, all Officer Hudspeth could do was pass along Paul's allegations to the federal investigators. He said, "We forwarded on to the Bureau of Indian Affairs, criminal investigations, but I'm not quite sure how they ran with it. All I know is that I made sure my kids weren't seen anymore by that pediatrician." The Bureau of Indian Affairs has declined to comment. And Paul says no one from the federal government followed up with him. No one ever contacted him to ask him what happened. He kept quiet about what had happened after that. At the IHS hospital, one of Scumbucket's fellow pediatricians, he was developing concerns. And he remained in his position until 2016. That's 21 years at Pine Ridge, including unfettered access to vulnerable Native boys. Think about that. You just want to scream.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, no. Here is a true hero also. This is Elaine, and with Scumbucket's abuse and the government's active concealment came to light only because of this remarkable woman who refused to let it stay buried. This is tribal prosecutor Elaine Yellowhorse. Yellowhorse did what the federal government wouldn't do for 30 years. She fought for justice for the Native children. Her dogged investigative work, combined with that of committed journalists from the Wall Street Journal and Frontline, finally exposed this decades-long cover-up. She understood what was at stake. She recognized the value of these children's lives. And even as the system had shown they didn't matter, she pursued the case with determination. Her work was outstanding. And she used those reporters to help get even more information. And without Elaine Yellowhorse's courage and persistence, the Scumbucket might still be out there. And the government's complicity would have never seen the light of day. We would have never known. Now, in 2019, their investigation revealed to the public and Weber's victims for the first time that the government did know. It wasn't until then. So think about that. All those years, and they didn't know until 2019 that IHS and the Bureau of Indian Affairs, they knew. All that time, they knew. I mean, it just makes you ill. So Weber was criminally prosecuted twice. On September 6th of 2018, he was found guilty of abusing patients at the Blackfeet Community Hospital in Montana between 1992 and 1995. He was sentenced to 18 years in federal prison. And then now we're going to talk about Joe Four Horns. And this is Joe. He was 35 years old when this was taken, when he went to trial back in like 2019, 2020. Joe was in prison at the time. He was in there on burglary. And they said in the courtroom, here walks Joe. And he's a muscle-bound guy with tattoos on his face, shackled, very tough-looking guy. The prosecutor, in her opening statement, puts up a picture of Joe Four Horns when he was 10 or 11 years old, right around the time that he was abused by the scumbucket. And that's that photo of that little boy. You know, she was brilliant because she brought them to who was abused. It wasn't the grown man that was in jail because they left him in shackles and he has tattoos. She brought the little boy to the courtroom and showed them who it was. And so she wanted the jury to remember that it was the little boy. That's who they were there for. And of course, Scumbucket's attorney, when he got up to question Joe, and because there was no cameras allowed, this was what they put in the paper of what Joe looked like. So they made him even look worse. So Scumbucket's attorney gets up there and he's kind of like, Joe, you know, you've never spoken up before. And this is what Joe said. He reacts in a way that totally undercut the defense's entire line of questioning. I just love this. Ken, I think you will too. Joe goes, right now, I don't want to talk about this. I don't ever want to talk about that. And he was in a short, honest, gut-wrenching, visceral terms. He says why he had never told anybody about this. He says, I got molested as a little kid, man. I don't want to talk about that. All right. I'll tell you the truth. Those pieces of bleep, those child creepers, they deserve to be in prison. They don't deserve to be on the street. They deserve to get bleep, bleep up and bleep killed in prison. And that's what's going to happen. His mother, during his testimony, his mother had to leave and she was crying because at this time, when this came out, when Joe was that age, she had lost custody of him. And so she never knew any of this had happened to him. And as we know, a lot of children of SA, they do end up getting into addiction. And let's face it, this guy was priming them for addiction because he was giving them drugs. So they fall into addiction. They fall into crime. Some people become very promiscuous. Some people want nothing to do with having adult relationships. This scars them for life. They can become a survivor, but it still scars them. And that's what we have to remember. And so as he's discussing in detail what happened to him, his mom she lost it and had to leave the room. And then the prosecution, they brought in several corroborating witnesses from Pine Ridge, South Dakota. And as was the case with Joe, they said, you see these tough guys sort of reduced to little boys as they talk about what happened to them. So in 2020, the scumbucket was found guilty of abusing Native American children in South Dakota and sentenced to more than 5 consecutive life sentences. But even after the story broke and he was convicted, IHS continued to conceal what it knew, because that's called cover your butt. Mm-hmm. So Rear Admiral Michael Weeke, I think is his name, has been leading the agency since 2017. He said, since this case has come to light, we've been doing a lot of checking internally to see what people may or may not have known. If there are individuals who are aware that something was going on, then you're basically culpable and complicit in those actions. He says, I'm in the process of developing a new policy that will require that every IHS employee be a mandatory reporter. The government spent over $618,000 on a comprehensive investigation into how it handled this case. It refused to share the results with the victims, though, or the public. Even the Senate Oversight Committee, they wouldn't let them see. So the Senate Committee on Indian Affairs publicly demanded that IHS release the unredacted copy of the report. They noticed there was no legal basis for them to withhold or limit access to its unredacted findings. Epstein, okay, files, yeah. We know how the government likes to cover itself.
Mm-hmm.
So multiple requests from the victims through their attorneys were rejected. And then journalists, they did FOIA requests, Freedom of Information Acts. They were ignored. Finally, the Wall Street Journal and the New York Times had to sue to force the government to release the report. It was made public in October of 2021, and even then they did numerous redactions. And it's 161 pages. I've seen the report. It's a lot. And it's devastating. It concludes that it was an open secret, widely disseminated throughout the hospital, that Scumbucket liked young boys in a way that suggested more than a doctor-patient relationship. IHS managers in Browning, Billings, Pine Ridge, and Aberdeen had an abundance of evidence presented to them, and some discoverable with the most modest amount of sincere inquiry to remove him. Yeah, 161 pages, Ken. And that was redacted. How many were there? But IHS management willfully ignored or actively suppressed efforts to address the dangers. Why? Because taking action would require steps that would be awkward, arduous, inconvenient, messy, and embarrassing.
Well, and that wouldn't do, would it?
No, never. So Native children were abandoned to a predator because the people in charge didn't want to be embarrassed. I mean, and even after the conviction, they did establish some presidential task force on protecting Native American children in the Indian healthcare system. They admit to longstanding systematic and institutional failures that enabled this abuse. They made recommendations for policy changes, training, revisions to the abuse reporting structure, but they remained silent about any support or compensation for the victims. In fact, while the government publicly claimed it had a moral and righteous obligation to victims and that it sincerely regretted the harm caused, it also moved to dismiss the lawsuits filed by the victims. The government argued that there should be no remedy for violations of its treaty promises to protect the Blackfeet people. They claimed the victims should have brought their case decades ago, long before the victims even knew what the government had been actively hiding. I mean, okay, so you're saying you guys didn't tell us soon enough, even though we were hiding all this.
It's the victim's fault.
Yeah, it's little boys' fault because they were between the ages of 9 to 13. Those were the ones he liked. But finally, there was some justice. 8 Native men, including 3 from the Blackfeet Nation, filed lawsuits seeking justice. They couldn't pursue typical tort claims because of government immunity. Instead, their attorneys took a creative approach. I like creative attorneys, arguing that the government breached its treaty obligations to protect the Blackfeet people. After more than 2 years of litigation and substantial motions practice, the parties agreed to mediation. The victims finally had a chance to be heard by the government. In October of 2022, the 8 men settled their case for $14.5 million. But that settlement doesn't undo the trauma. It doesn't erase 30 years of abuse. It doesn't restore the stolen childhoods.
Good night, Frank. Thanks for being here.
Hey, good to see you, Frank. Yeah, it doesn't bring back the victims who never came forward, who suffered in silence, because I'm sure there are many that didn't come forward and may never seek help. And why this matters? Because this case reveals something we've discussed on our show before. The system is designed to fail Native children. At every point where someone could have stopped this scumbucket, they chose not to. And you ask yourself, would this have happened at the hospital down the street from you if these children were from the suburbs. Something to contemplate. Because that hospital knew what they were doing. But because Native children's safety is less important than avoiding embarrassment, less important than convenience, less critical than protecting the institution, think about all the people who knew. The professional references who warned IHS before he was even hired. The colleagues back in New Mexico of his inappropriate behavior. The staff and doctors at Blackfeet recognized grooming behavior and said something. The hospital CEO knew that the boys were spending nights at his home. Why is a doctor who's single having little boys spend the night with him? I'm sorry, no doctor, no teacher, no minister, clergy, preacher, none of them should have your child. And back then they didn't have cell phones. But that's something none of those kind of people should have your child's cell phone number. They should be talking through the parent if there's something that needs to be discussed. And IHS officials were told, you have a child creeper on your staff. And the supervisors at Pine Ridge received multiple reports, and all they did was pass the trash. Each of these people had the power to stop him, a duty to protect children. Every single one of them chose the institution over the kids. The whistleblowers who tried to do what was right were ostracized, relocated, and punished. The message was clear: protect the agency, not the children. This is what systematic racism looks like. This is what it means when we say Native lives don't matter to these institutions. Because if they had been white children in a suburban pediatrician's office, would it have taken 30 years for it to come out? No. The government's own report estimates that for every known victim, sorry guys, there are likely dozens who endured their abuse in silence and will continue to do so until the end of their lives. Dozens. Think about the scope of destruction. Think about all those lives forever altered because the people in positions of power chose convenience over children. He's now in prison for the rest of his life, thank goodness, but it doesn't undo the damage, nor does it fix the system that protected him for 3 decades. This task force made recommendations, and all this, and let's hope they go through with it. But they never did come forward for these children. And recommendations don't build trust in a system that's fundamentally betrayed an entire community. And you can see why the Native community does not have trust in the governmental system. So when you see a Native young man that may be homeless on the street, who knows why he's there? Or could he be a victim? We don't know. Could he have been a victim of this man? Richard Doe, William Doe, and James Doe, the 3 Blackfeet men who came forward, showed incredible courage. They fought for justice, not only for themselves, but every victim who couldn't come forward. Their attorneys found that creative legal path, and when the system tried to shut every door. And we do have to recognize tribal prosecutor Elaine Yellowhorse, but she brought this to light. And when the system failed and the government chose silence, she chose justice. That's real advocacy. Mm-hmm. And they shouldn't have had to fight that hard. The government should have protected the children, not the institution.
Well, not only the federal government, but the tribal leaders were that's what probably angers me the most, is that their own tribal leaders were hiding this stuff.
Well, the one chairman brought it to the attention, but when nothing was done, it's like, what could you have done? Maybe he could have, put it out there to the parents. Don't let your kids go see him. Be more vocal, but they just kept pushing the accusation, saying, well, we have no proof. We have no proof. Did you ever sit down and talk to the children? Would have been my question. Did they take the time? And sadly, there is child SA abuse on reservations, even from family.
Yep.
And that's one thing. We know a lot of children were, hey, surf girl. We know a lot of these kids were abused when they were in residential schools. Somewhere, sometime, it has to stop. The trauma's got to stop by stopping the abuse. It can't continue. These kind of people, if you are harming children, get them off the reservation. Don't let them continue to hurt other children or women. These kind of people have no place among your people. You need to protect them. They need to be safe and secure and know that they're not going to be harmed at home. And so that's something for the leaders of the tribes to really think about. What are we doing to protect our children? Because the children are your future. They're the ones that are going to make your tribe grow. Do you want children that are damaged because everybody's looking the other way? And I've had many conversations with several people on reservations, and we've talked about, you can love a family member, but when they cross that line to harming a child, no, we're done. You can love the person they were before you knew they turned into a child creeper. But once they turn into a child creeper, we're done. Because they don't get healed. Yeah, you're right, Ken. Some leadership does abuse them. There have been those. There was a case I was looking at tonight before, we went on the air of someone that was in a position of leadership that was harming children. So that's why, as a community, we speak up for the children. And we back the ones that are on the reservations that are speaking up for their kids. We get behind them and use our voice. And that's what we do to help, is to put it out there that you don't have to continue to be silent. And silence is betrayal. We don't want that. Go ahead and speak up. Because, instead of 30 years of betrayal, that's what they had. 30 years. I mean, that just blows my mind. 30 years of those little guys being abused. And how many? That just a few came forward.
How many didn't? How many didn't? I mean, that's how sad this is. How many didn't?
Exactly. And so what does that do? It brings them trauma. If they eventually have family, that goes off on their the trauma just keeps going. So we have to stop the generational trauma. And it's by speaking up and saying, not doing it no more. So I know this was a heavy topic tonight, but it was one I think that's important, because we want to stand up for the children and let them know that, hey, try and find an adult that's safe and let them know what's happening. If you're a single parent, male or female, be very careful who you let around your children. No doctor, no clergy, none of these people in authority should ever be in a room with your child alone. Just shouldn't be. They have no reason to. If what they have to say can't be said in front of their parents, you don't need to talk to my kid. You are your kid's advocate. You are the one that stands up for your child, and don't be afraid to do it. Do not be afraid to do it. Let's look at some missing people. And remember, when you're out and about, you guys, put that cell phone down. People sometimes will leave voluntarily, but sometimes a situation comes up and then they can't come home. And we know trafficking is real. So if you see these people, make that phone call. Contact the authorities, call the number we give. If they're in another state because they have been trafficked, contact 911. Don't be afraid to call. It's very important. Yeah, Amanda, you're right. He did switch up. Yep. Yeah. If one of his sons would have been the victim, it would have been a whole different thing. He wouldn't have stood for it. So our first person here is Brianna Madrid. She's 14 years old, you guys. She disappeared on November 13th from Santan Valley, Arizona. We have too many girls missing out of Arizona, people. She has brown eyes, black hair. She's 4'10". She's 100 pounds. There's a potential sighting in Queen Creek, the Santan area, as of late December. But this is critical. She's a teen. If, they even told you don't approach, contact authorities. So the Queen Creek Police Department is 480-358-3500. Or call the National Children's number of 1-800-843-5678. I have a couple of numbers for you. The NCMEC number is 206-8933, and the NCIC number is M888-697677. Remember, you can always dial 911. So let's get her found because she's too young to be out there on her own.
And remember, all this information is going to be in the missing persons report.
Yes, we will have it there. Okay, our next one is Ava. Now, Ava is just 15, and she's missing since January 12th from Omaha, Nebraska. She's got brown eyes, black hair. She's 5 foot tall, 100 pounds, wearing a pink crop top, torn jeans, and carrying a pink blanket. She contacted the Omaha Police Department at 402-444-5600. The NCMEC number is 207-4265. They also have a 24-hour call center at 1-800-843-5678. Yeah, she is just a baby. Let's get her found. For some reason, we have a lot of young ones tonight. This is Jada Alexis. She's Jada Alexis Dial. She's 17. Let me see here. Boom. There we go. Okay. There's my picture's not moving.
Somehow Brianna got put in there again. Hold on a second. Let me see if I can move it. Whoops. Wait a minute.
I touched a button. Jada is who we're looking for.
Jada?
Jada, Jada.
No. Hold on.
Maybe I didn't get her picture.
Jasmina? No.
Let me see.
That was it.
Jasmina? Okay, well, let's go with Jasmina. I must have put the wrong picture in for Jada. I will get her picture on Sunday. Okay, Jasmina Villarreal is 17, January 22nd. She's been missing from Casa Blanca, Arizona. She's affiliated with the Gila River Indian community. She has brown eyes, black hair, 5'2" and 120 pounds. She is wearing a black jacket, black sweatpants, and a black tote bag. She has a burn scar on her right shoulder. So please contact the Gila River Police Department at 520-562-4511. Let's get her found. 17's too young to be out there. And then we have Memory Miller. I like that name, Memory Miller. She's 16, a young one. January 5th, she disappeared. Blackfeet Reservation in Montana. She has hazel eyes, brown hair, 5'7", 170 pounds. Contact the Blackfeet law enforcement at 406-338-4000. Let's get memory found. And our last one that we have will be Mia. And Mia Mountain Horse is 16. Told you they were all young tonight. January 8th from Strathmore, Alberta, Canada. She's a First Nations native girl with brown eyes, purple and mauve hair, which I like the sound of that. She's 4'7", 90 pounds. She's a tiny little thing. Contact the Strathmore RCMP at 403-934-3535. Crime Stoppers is 1-800-222-8477. Yeah, Ken, they're just babies. They just breaks your heart, doesn't it? Little babies. So remember, guys, we want to stick up for these children, make our voices heard, make sure we're protecting our young ones in our lives, whether they're our children, our grandchildren, nieces, nephews, or just kids that you know, your friends' kids. If you see something suspicious, say something, because people know. If you get those hairs on the back of your neck kind of are coming up because of the scum bucket, people like him, go ahead and say something. Don't be afraid you're going to look stupid. Worst case scenario, you find out you're wrong. Okay, sorry. But, you had the creeper factor. You can protect the kids. Remember, every killer predator depends on our silence. Don't give it to them. If you know something, speak up. Because it wasn't a mannequin. It never is. And remember, somebody always knows something. Now, tonight we told a story that really matters, a story about our Indigenous Native brothers and sisters who deserve better, who deserve to be protected and believed and safe. And a lot of times when we think about child SA, we think of little girls. This story, boys are victims too. Boys can be trafficked too. We can't get this kind of line in our head that, it won't happen if it's my son. It can happen. We're seeing it more and more. So please, let's protect the children. And that's the song I wrote in the beginning, and you can hear it at the end. This was created for us by one of our mods, Katrina Marshall. Silence is betrayal. So if you know someone that has been abused, contact the local FBI office if you're on the reservation, or the Department of Justice. Reach out for support. If anybody has tips that they want to give, remember we have a tip line in email. It's tips, 4, trialjunkiesunited@gmail.com. Every Thursday, not thirsty, Thirsty Thursday, we dedicate our show to missing and murdered Indigenous persons. Sundays, we do cold cases, trial updates, and more stories that need voices. We did have one of our mods, Katrina, is asking that we maybe do a trial case coming up. Maybe not a current trial, but maybe a trial that we got some questions about. If anybody has suggestions, give us an email at trialjunkiesunited@gmail.com, you guys. Surf Girl, you're right. Everybody is important. So let's remember that if you can, click the button, do a comment after the show, do all that stuff for the algorithm. I don't understand it all, but there's, click and like and subscribe and all that fun stuff. So we're going to see you guys on Sunday. We want you to stay informed, stay compassionate, keep seeking the truth, keep demanding justice for all. Never stop speaking up. We love you guys, and we're here for you. So thank you again. Enjoy the song and ciao.
Greetings, truth seekers and justice warriors. Let's rise, your storyteller with that fire in her eyes. A ride or die, dogs riding shotgun by her side. Moon rolls with us through the dark of night, and we're ready for the fight in the wilderness where predators hunt, where the system fails and cases grow cold. We're shining our light on the other side, on the stories that need to be told. Welcome to justice after dark, where cold cases never rest. Every name deserves to be heard, from the missing to the murdered, because even in darkness, justice needs a voice. Join the story, make some noise. Justice belongs to everyone. We bring it to light. Through cold case files where time stands still, Indigenous voices echo from the void. The forgotten names, we still remember them. We won't ignore any missing souls. Building bridges, breaking walls, answering justice's call. One community, one voice. In the darkness we rejoice, sharing stories left behind, every truth we can find. Welcome to justice after dark, where cold cases never sleep. Every name deserves to be heard, for the missing and the murdered, because even in darkness, justice deserves a voice. Join the story, make some noise. Justice belongs to everyone. We bring it to light. So buckle up, trial junkies, truth seekers and justice warriors. The road ahead gets bumpy as we guide you through another set of stories that need justice. Welcome to Justice After Dark. The adventure starts now. One community, one voice.